Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our DMACC Ask a Professional event. Thank you all for being here. We are excited to have professionals here with us today to share their career in carpentry. And our hope really with these events are that they're linking your education and your career interests to professionals right here in the Midwest. Before we get started, I would like to say a quick hello. My name is Jill Hoyk. I work a part of the work-based learning team at DMACC. So again, welcome and thank you all for tuning in. I would also like to mention that at DMACC, we do have building and construction trades programs. And so I will be leaving a little bit of information in the chat if any of you are interested in learning a little bit more about our DMACC programs. But I also want to mention too, for those of you who are tuning in live, if you have any questions for our professionals today, feel free to leave them in the chat or kindly unmute yourself and ask that way too. These are what these events are for, so please ask your questions. But with that, I would love to hand it over to Brandon Patterson with the Des Moines Home Builders Association. Brandon will be our moderator for today and introduce our professional panelists. Brandon?
Hello, everybody. Brandon Patterson. I work for the Home Builders Association of Greater Des Moines and also Iowa Skilled Trades. I do workforce development. So part of what I do is trying to find young people like you to show our industry to and kind of just let you know what kind of careers are available in it. So we're going to start by doing introductions and let everybody introduce themselves and who they are and that type of stuff. And then we'll get into how they got to where they are today and learn more about their trade. Mark Smith, do you want to start?
You bet. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Smith, and I'm with the Carpenters Local 106 and our apprenticeship program. And I am standing in the training center of our apprenticeship program today and look forward to introducing you to a couple of apprentices that are on the shop floor learning some concrete wall processes and share some more information with you.
Other Mark?
I'm Mark Schmidt. I work for Dean Snyder Construction and I'm a job site superintendent.
Awesome. Mark, we'll just stay with you. Mark Schmidt, we'll just start with you and kind of talk about your career pathway to where you are now and where you came from. I know you had a background in education, so kind of let us know how you got to where you are today.
Well, I like many students, I worked for a general contractor through college, and I have a degree in industrial education, and I taught for a couple of years, and I always have come back to construction. And there was a point of 16 years that I was a general contractor running my own business and got the idea to go back into education. So I taught for a while. COVID changed everything with education as a trades teacher. And I actually went to work for Seedorf Masonry as a journeyman mason and worked for them. And Dean Snyder had a opening sign looking that they were hiring and walked into the office, and I'm back to residential construction, which is my first love. And I really enjoy working here.
Awesome. Mark Smith, can you tell us kind of like your path to where you are now with Carpenters Union?
You bet. Sorry, I'm pulling the screen up here. So yeah, my path was a little different. My path was, I came right out of high school and jumped right into the trades. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that time. I'm a graduate of Lincoln High School in Des Moines. At that time, the two questions were, where are you going to college, or which branch of the military are you going to be in? And neither one of those worked out for me. So I was lucky and found my way right through the apprenticeship program through another friend of mine who had gone through the program. And the rest is history. Almost 30 years later, I was a carpenter out in the field for 24 years before I had the chance to come in and be a role as a spokesman, if you will, for the carpenters. That's what I do today, talking to folks like you and out recruiting other journeymen and apprentices into the trade. So yeah, I've had the pleasure of working on projects of all sizes, shapes, and flavors throughout the central Iowa area, anywhere from, you know, walking in, spending an hour doing a repair in someone's business or a place of work, to large scale jobs like your Wells Fargo Arena, you know, parking ramps, colleges, hospitals, universities. Everything above. And that's the really great thing about the construction trade, is whether you're a carpenter, plumber, electrician, or any of those, your day is most likely going to be different tomorrow than it was today. And that's what keeps a lot of us going in that. And I think Mark would agree with that as well.
So something that you both mentioned, and I'll start with Mark Smith first, is you've talked about apprenticeship. Can you explain what an apprenticeship is and maybe the different types of apprenticeships? Like, I know, Mark, obviously you're the union side, but maybe explain some of that, and then kind of the process to getting started in an apprenticeship, even if you were just to come straight out of high school.
Sure, you bet. So the idea of an apprenticeship is to get you up to speed, you know, because there I was, like I said, I was a senior in high school, and I was kind of thinking about the trades. Didn't even really know which piece of the trades, whether I wanted to be a carpenter, electrician, plumber, what have you. So you got to learn how to be one of those. You don't just go out there and become one of those tomorrow because that's what you decided today that you were going to do. So through an apprenticeship program, what we do is we align you with contractors. And I'll try to hold my camera here. I know you won't be able to read them, but you can see all those banners hanging up. So we partner with those contractors, and those contractors employ journeyman carpenters and also our apprentices. So they sponsor them, if you will, throughout the 4-year apprenticeship program. So you're going to earn while you learn. That's our the phrase that we've had for a long time, which means you're going to work for one of those contractors starting day one, whether it be you know, somebody like a Dean Snyder or a White's or First Interiors, whoever that contractor is, you would work for them, and then earn a paycheck the whole time you're working for them, and progress through the apprenticeship at the same time.
And Mark Schmidt, do you want to tell us a little bit about your pathway? I know you said you were at Seedorf there for a minute too, and I know that's a different thing than carpentry, but maybe explain that part of the apprenticeship too, if you want to.
Well, with me being at Seedorf, that was an interesting thing because I was a teacher that taught the only formalized masonry class in the state. And some of my students went into the union apprenticeship, not as a first-year apprentice. They had jumped in at a higher level because of what I had done in the classroom, which I know goes against a lot of people's thought process. I learned on the job site. It was the years through college, and then after I graduated from college and taught for a couple of years, I went back to the construction and worked for that same contractor. And I learned on the job site, mainly residential, building new homes from foundation to completion. And when I had my own business, you learn a little bit differently when you have your own business. I mean, it is still a learning cycle and a learning process. And so all of those things throughout my life as far as learning. And I buy into the whole concept of lifelong learning. I try to learn something every day. Building science is changing dramatically. And so our techniques and our processes and materials are always changing. So you have to keep learning. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust.
And you both kind of mentioned learning on the job and that type of stuff. So I want to ask Mark Smith just to kind of tell me about the earn while you learn kind of the mantra and what that means and how that looks for an apprentice as far as, you know, how many weeks or days of a year are actually spent in the classroom versus how many are actually spent out in the field or with whoever their sponsor is or their the business that they work for, and then kind of like how that looks as far as on the job training hours and how they're getting paid while they're actually in both the classroom and on the job.
You bet. So I apologize. It might get a little noisy. Actually, I'm not going to apologize. That's what I wanted you to see and hear as well. So what that looks like is, like Mark mentioned as well, you're absolutely right. The majority of your time is going to be spent on a job site, working for that contractor, learning out in the field every day, real life time from the other folks who know the craft that are going to help you along the way. So structure over the course of the 4-year apprenticeship program, what that looks like is you work for that contractor for about 3 months at a time, and then you take a break and you come into our training center here, just like these apprentices over here, for 1 week at a time. So you're going to take a break from the job site, and regardless of what task you're doing on the site, you're probably more than likely going to come in here and do something completely different. For instance, some of these guys here might be what we call interior systems guys. They might do a lot of metal stud and drywall or ceilings or trim work or something like that on the inside of a building. What they're learning today or this week is how to set wall forms for like heavy, deep foundation or going up vertical to build the next parking ramp, 5-story structure or something like that. So once they get done in here for the week, they're going to go right back to work for that contractor that they were previously working for and advance themselves just like that over the course of the 4 years, as well as their wages, not just their experience.
Good. And so I want to say, so both you guys are kind of on 2 different sides of the spectrum. So for those that don't know, Mark Schmidt has an attic being taken down in a garage right now behind him. And then Mark Smith is in his training facility in Altoona on the commercial side. So it's kind of cool to see the 2 different sides of this here. Mark Schmidt, I'm going to talk with you first. Can you tell us kind of like the difference like between residential and commercial, what your day-to-day looks like? And then I'll jump to Mark Smith to get kind of like the commercial day-to-day.
1 second.
Okay. My day to day, I'm usually on the job site at usually about 6:30, and normal employee work hours. As a superintendent, I do get the freedom of setting my work hours on my job sites. I usually have employees start at 7 and we work till 4:30. Depending on weather and conditions, it might be a little bit longer or shorter, but I always try to at least get the 8 hours. I usually start off my day doing some of the paperwork and doing some of my forms on field wire, and it's just making sure materials are there and the process is running through as far as the job. I meet with my project manager usually at least once a day, and we have our breaks and our lunch, and then towards the end of the day, I'm usually hunting down materials to keep things moving for the next day and doing my end of day paperwork. And so that's, as a superintendent in the residential field where I work, it's a working position. So I'm not just overseeing. I don't ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do right beside them. And I enjoy the work.
Excellent. And with that residential side, obviously that's like new construction homes, remodeling homes like you are today, maybe some townhomes and things like that. And then once you get to the larger scale with maybe like an apartment complex, or like Mark has a division that works on hospitals specifically, and they're working on, forming up bridges and stuff like that. So Mark Smith, can you tell us a little bit about kind of that commercial side, and then also jump into this because I don't think a lot of people know, because I didn't know. Carpenters aren't just doing carpentry work with wood and things like that. You mentioned that you're talking about concrete, things like that. Can you explain some of those other pieces that a carpenter does?
You bet. And it's getting a little louder here as well. So can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Sort of. All right. I'll back just a little bit. So very similar, even though we're commercial, where Mark was talking about the residential job site, very similar though. It's still an early morning start, 7 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon. Being mobile, you know, it may not be the same site tomorrow as it was today. You know, you're going to take your break more or less right on the site, wherever you're at. Morning, lunch, and sometimes an afternoon. So very similar, right? The bigger difference just between the kind of work that Mark's doing there on his screen versus where we're at. We say residential commercial. The commercial way I describe it is just any building or structure where somebody else goes to play or work. Anything besides a home, pretty much. Just because we just don't have that much in the market. We don't train on that piece of the market. So that could be what carpenters are doing on those tasks. Could be anything like what you see here. Excuse me, which is a bunch of metal stud framing. This could be the exterior of a local bank or a Taco John's. I'll get a little closer here so you can see it. Right, so the outside of the building could be framed out of this. And then they would do the finishes inside that building, whether it be sheetrock, the wood that hang the doors, the hardware, so forth like that. Well, then what becomes before a building like this is the foundation, concrete work. So we say we do concrete work, which is wall forming and footing forming and things like that. And I'll come over here where these guys are working and show you what this looks like. So they're getting ready they've got one side of a wall erected there. Then they would put another side of that form together after that's plumbed up and ready to go. And I'll swing around here. This is the other side of that form, which is what we call a gang form. So they're going to mimic. We've got a nice big overhead crane here. So on a job site, this would be that tower crane you're driving around. They're going to pick this form up and swing it over right next to that one. And that is a small section of wall, but on a site that could be anywhere from that size to 200 foot long. So that's just an example of the different varieties of the types of work you might be able to do.
And then also includes a little bit of machinist work and welding work too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Through the apprenticeship program, everybody's going to get a taste of welding, cutting, some fabrication. Because on the site, you never know what you're going to need to be able to do, especially on the heavier construction sites. You might need to weld some mounting plates together, some decking plates. On bridge work, it'd be lagging and so forth. So we get into a little bit of everything.
So we had a question from the chat, and I'll go to Mark Schmidt first. Just talking about how important are soft skills in construction?
Very important, because I'm always working with people, whether it's coworkers, homeowners, suppliers. So I'm always working with all of those other people, and communication skills are huge, and also learning some of the technology with the different programs that we use. Just being able to communicate clearly, and whether it's employees and homeowners. And I'll always tell people that you have to, when dealing with customers, especially in the residential world, that you have to lead the customers along through the building process, because most of them really don't know what the process is, and you have to lead them along and maybe show them different products, and as far as different finishes and products, And ultimately, it's the homeowner's choice to decide what they want, because ultimately they're paying our bill.
Mark
Hopefully
Smith,
that
what do you
answers.
think about not just soft skills, but like the types of skills that students could bring over or should have coming out of high school, maybe that are important?
Sure, you bet. Very similar. It's just a slightly different setting is all. Communication skills are huge. Does that say communication? Does that mean you need to be able to deliver a speech to 500 people? No, it means you need to be able to stand face to face. You need to be able to be somewhat direct. You know, when you're working in your crews together in teams, you need to be able to read people a little bit. And then also communication to, like Mark was saying, to possible end users, clients. You know, you may, on a commercial site, often we don't interact with the owner near as often. That site is managed by a superintendent and project managers, project engineers, and so forth that work on that end with that end user or owner. But sometimes we do. Sometimes that owner wants to come out to the job when they've spent $1 million or $10 million or $60 million on a large site and see how things are going. So we need to be able to interact with that as well.
So what's, let's just say you're a high schooler that's just about ready to graduate, or maybe you're the start of your, junior, senior year or whatever. What types of classes maybe should they be taking to prepare them for becoming an apprentice in the carpentry world? And then let's just say, so like I know that the electrical union has an assessment that they have to take before they become an apprentice, or before they can even get accepted. Basically, are there any assessments or anything like that for either the union or non-union side that need to be taken? And then what can help prepare those students to take those, like what certain math, any type of English or geometry, like those types of things that they would need to know to take that assessment?
So I can jump in on ours real quick. So with the carpenters, with our apprenticeship program, we do not have like an entrance exam or an assessment for our program. That's going to be a conversation to get you started between you as an individual and that employer, the contractor who's hired you. So depending on how that conversation goes, you could possibly come in with a little credit, or more than likely you're going to start on the ground floor, because they like to see everybody go through the program. But as far as heads up and what to be taking now, as far as courses, definitely your math. We use math all day long, every day. We use some pretty specific math skills in geometry for sure, algebra, a little bit of trigonometry. Not to scare anybody off, but you do need to be versed in the math that applies to the skills that you're doing. Some of it's a little more complex than others. Once you get up to speed on it, it'll just be running in the background while your hands are doing the work, and you won't even realize it.
Okay, we don't do an assessment prior to employment, but classes that would be important. Your industrial ed classes, if you can have carpentry classes, drafting at least, or CAD, so you have print reading experience and can convey ideas to other people, is always helpful. Of course, math, English, because anymore we're having to document what we're doing in written form. So those are all important things to have. I guess going back to the industrial ed too, any of the classes that you can take, as far as the welding is all helpful. Woodworking, basic tool usage, all of those things play a role. And the more you know, the more you're going to be able to dictate as a wage as you go along. And I guess, once again, to never stop learning. You can pick up something from anybody. And I learned some things from some younger employees that I work with. I don't proclaim to be an expert in everything that I do, but you can always learn something and then choose what's right for you or the situation.
Mark, I know you have some apprentices there anyway that we could pull a few aside and ask them a little bit about what their day-to-day looks like and their thoughts.
Yeah, you bet. Hang on just a second. Let me grab a couple of them.
And while we're doing that, Mark Schmidt, so if you had to do anything over as far as career goes or anything like that, you know, what would you change? What would you have done earlier? Maybe things you would have done in high school or coming out of high school to change where you are now or make it better or any of that?
Well, I look back for my own career path. I had some professors in college that tried to get me to change my major to construction management. And I was at the point I just want out of college and I didn't want to change my major. I probably should have changed that construction management. But all in all, I love what I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. I can make the choice of doing other occupations. And I enjoy what I do. I enjoy teaching younger employees trade skills. And it's important that we pass the knowledge on to our coworkers, and whether they're young or old alike.
All right, Mark Smith, who do you have with you?
All right, so I got Alexis here. I'll just introduce him, but I'll let him kind of describe his path a little bit. Alexis is a graduate of East and did some of the skilled trades program down at Central Campus. So he's new to us from last year and works for Heartland Companies.
I believe is Alexis our first signing day in the carpentry side, is that right?
Yeah. I was the first one at Central, I believe.
Yep, first one out of Central Campus. But he came on board about a little less than a year ago, and probably hasn't missed a whole lot of work yet since, and is off and running. What do you do every day?
A lot of metal framing, drywalling, stuff like that. Pretty keeps me busy. I like it.
So out in the field, have you ever touched concrete forms like you are today?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. All I do is interior work, and that's pretty much it.
So that's the example I was saying earlier is how when through that 4-year apprenticeship program as a carpenter, you're going to get a taste of all the scopes of work that we do, or at least many of them, not all, because we get new ones all the time as well. But so the idea there is that even though Alexis here works for Heartland every day doing metal stud and drywall, that someday down the road, if that doesn't work out for him, he can transition to being a carpenter with another scope of work as well. So we want them well-rounded when they leave here.
And Alexis, how's the kind of like school work or in classroom work going compared to like on the job training? How much do you actually do in the classroom? We have some students online with us compared to being out in the field. And what do you like about it?
So like when we're in class, I like it because it's not like, how do I say it? It's pretty straightforward. You focus on one main thing rather than just saying, oh yeah, it's construction. Like this week we're focused on concrete. And I have no clue. I've never done concrete in my life before. And so they simplify everything. Any questions you have, you could just ask, and he explains everything very well.
Sure. And so like each time the classroom time that you would spend, which is how many hours would you say this week you've been in the class?
I know for sure we're there 2 days straight.
2 days straight.
16 hours, maybe 18, 20 hours. Total.
Right. So now they're probably going to be on the shop for the remainder of the week.
Yeah.
But that class time that they spent there was very specific only to this concrete forming task that they're doing.
It's like safety, like training how to do this, what's everything called, and what you need, what you don't need, stuff like that.
And what are your favorite things about the job so far, the carpentry job?
Honestly, just the way that they point you towards one direction, and how I had it easy coming in. I didn't have to do an interview or anything with Heartland, and they've been treating me very well. I got my own foreman now that I follow, so I got work all the time, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
How does it feel to have a job straight out of high school? Like, what kind of impact has that made on your life or your family's life?
So my girlfriend always tells me that I'm lucky that I don't have to go out to look for a career, and she has to go like through the process of going to DMACC and doing all this and that. And she's like, well, like you got your life set already. And I'm like, yeah, I really do. And it's just an easier option, I think, and it pays off in the end. The pensions, the insurance, and the pay is really well too.
So like
do you
Mark,
make of that?
Alexis, you guys can answer this together. Explain like, you know, a year one, maybe what you're coming in, year two, year three, and then your journeyman, kind of like, obviously that's a process, but then you're obviously getting pay increases over that time as well, what that looks like.
So like when I first started, I made 18 start like right off the bat without any knowledge whatsoever. And then I think it was like after my second class or third class, I got a raise. And that was $1.50. So I'm at $19.50. And it just keeps going up every so many hours that you work in the field and so many hours you go to school.
Yeah.
And a lot of the journeymen that I work with, they're steady at like 30 an hour. And then depending on how you are with the company, they give you higher scale or whatever, what they think you're worth.
Above that.
Yeah,
Yep.
above that.
Yeah, he nailed it. That's pretty much it. It's a progression over the 4 years where nobody starts less than that amount that he mentioned. We have a minimum of 18. It's actually 1875 now. It's increased since Alexis started. So, but you progress as, like he mentioned, you get so many on the job hours at the field, and then you come to class as scheduled. It's in black and white. Your pay will increase as well.
Excellent. And Mark, how does that vary for you? I know it's obviously a little bit different. Can you explain any of that?
Our employees start between the $17 to $19 an hour. Of course, you know, not with the formal training, but they get usually a 6-month raise, and then yearly after that, after their review process. And of course, you're on the job learning as you're working. So I guess that's all that I can really know, because I'm not in the business office. I'm on the field every day. So I will say, when having been an employer, and as a teacher, I always told my students to look for an employer that has employees that have been there for a long time, because you know you don't retain employees unless you're doing something right. And so look for longevity of employees. And also, having been that small employer, a small employer generally can't offer the wages and benefits of a large employer. So at least keep that in mind. And benefits anymore, just as in the union, they have fantastic benefits, are huge anymore. It's not just about the dollar amount, it's what else are you getting besides that. So I think that's important to stress to kids.
No, absolutely agree. Jill's probably going to make me kick off here pretty soon, but any last thoughts or any questions from anybody watching in the classrooms? Mark Smith, do you want to have any parting thoughts for everybody that's on?
Sure, real quickly. Yeah, just wrapping up. I know Alexis wanted to mention about real quickly about his pension benefits that he makes as well. Mark was mentioning about benefits. You know, he mentioned how much he made when he started. At that time, he actually upside down just a little bit. He actually made more in benefits than he did on the check. And so he's already at this young age in life contributing to 2 different pensions and has full insurance for himself and so forth. So I'll let him just speak real quickly about it because I know we're trying to wrap up.
So yeah, like the 2 pensions that I have, I'm 19 right now. I plan to retire when I'm 55, and everything just, if I keep going steady, working normal hours till I'm 55, gosh, those 2 pensions would be huge. And my insurance right now, I've been going to a doctor recently, and my dad has me under his insurance, and his insurance is as good as mine, even though he's been with that company for such a long time. And they always tell me, why do you have insurance? Like, you don't need it, you're young. And I can't explain it to them because they only speak Spanish, and I try to tell them that it comes as a package total. And so like you get very well benefits and really good insurance.
We'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Mark Schmidt, what about you? Last kind of final thoughts for everybody.
You know, continue to learn. It never ends. The learning never ends. As you go in any career. So keep that in mind. And it doesn't always have to be a formal learning. You can learn things from YouTube, written information. You can learn something so many places now. What's available to you, and it's your choice of how you use that information. So I think that's something you need to stress to all students.
I lied, I'm not done yet. Just another question for both Mark Schmidt and Mark Smith. Mark Smith, if somebody wanted to start their career in the union as coming out of high school or thinking about it, how should they, what's the next step for them? I'm gonna graduate after May. Who do I get in contact with? What do I gotta do?
Sure. So real simply, you can either just call us and we can get in touch with you that way, Carpenters 106, or you can hit our website, which is carpenters106.org. It's fairly simple, and there you can submit right there on the website, you know, that you're interested, and we'll reach back out to you, or you can just simply walk in the front door. We're out here in Altoona, right off of the interstate. If you come out the interstate looking for us on I-80, you'll find us. It's a big building sitting right there on the corner. So just walk in and start having a conversation, and we'll walk you through from there.
Excellent. And Mark Schmidt, talk about how you could get started with Dean Schneider.
Okay, easiest way is we have a website, deansnyder.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram also. And I represent a very small part of Dean Snyder in the residential market. We do a majority of the company is commercial market, and we have offices in Omaha, Ankeny, and Clear Lake. So we're out there and we're growing, and we'd love to have good people that will show up to work and are willing to work.
Awesome. And if anybody can't get a hold of either one of them, please just reach out to me. You can reach out at Iowa Skilled Trades or Brandon at DSM HBA, and I'd be happy to point you in either one of their directions. Both excellent places to start a career. And that's all I got from my end.
Yes, well, thank you, Mark Smith and Mark Schmidt, for your time today. We truly appreciate it. And for those of you logging in, thank you for joining us. This is recorded, so feel free to go back and rewatch or share with whomever you feel like would be interested. But again, thank you all for your time. And we have many more DMACC Ask a Professional events, so be checking back. But thank you all.